Before we begin, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more heartfelt stories. Now, settle in and enjoy the story. The evening wind moved like a sigh across the quiet street of Claymore Avenue, stirring the amber leaves piled in soft drifts along the curb. In a third-floor apartment that smelled faintly of cinnamon and old books, Aria Wells stood in front of her mirror in a borrowed dress, a soft wine-colored velvet that kissed her curves like it had been made for her. Her hands trembled at her sides, the weight of the moment sinking into her skin. She was 22, fresh out of Howard University, still working 2 jobs while applying for graduate school. Her life was orderly, practical, humble, but nothing about tonight felt ordinary. She brushed her fingers across her collarbone, then lower, pausing just above her stomach. Her body was her own, always had been. But tonight she was about to offer something she'd never shared with anyone. Not out of pressure, not out of recklessness, but because of him. Silas Langston, billionaire, 32, sharp jaw, sharper mind. A man born of scandal and steel, who'd built a tech empire before most men his age had finished grad school. But none of that explained the way her breath caught every time he looked at her like she was a secret the world didn't deserve. They had met only 6 weeks ago, an accidental meeting at an art gallery she was working at on weekends. He had asked about a painting. She had responded without pretense. No flirtation, no desperation, just curiosity meeting curiosity. From there, it had been a storm. Silas Langston stood barefoot on the cold marble floor of his penthouse, a glass of bourbon in his hand and a quiet tension coiling in his chest. He had been with women before. Dozens, maybe more. Models, diplomats' daughters, heiresses, women who knew what to say, what to wear, what to pretend. But Aria was a thunderclap in a world that had gone quiet. He hadn't planned on caring. He never did. His father taught him early. Women were a comfort, not a consequence. His mother had left when he was 12, her perfume vanishing in the middle of a winter storm, her words lingering. Don't let this world turn you into ice. But it had, until her. He hadn't touched Aria yet, hadn't even kissed her until last week. But tonight, she was coming over, and the air felt electric, like the sky before lightning strikes. Not for lust, not even for comfort, but for something else he didn't yet have a name for. Back in her apartment, Aria pulled on a long wool coat and slipped on her boots. Her friend Lena had begged her not to go tonight. He's a billionaire, Ami. You think he's not done this 100 times? But Lena didn't understand. Aria wasn't going because he was rich. She was going in spite of it. Silas didn't try to impress her with his wealth. He listened. He remembered. He showed up not with gifts, but with presence. When she told him she'd never been with anyone, he didn't laugh. He didn't rush. He just looked at her, eyes quiet and burning, and said, "You deserve to be known, not claimed." That sentence had unraveled her. Now, as she stepped into the waiting car he'd sent, not a limo, just a town car, she whispered a prayer under her breath. Let me not regret this. Silas had lit candles. It surprised even him. The way he wanted the night to feel soft, not staged. He had no script, no plan, just his heart, cracking open in real time. When the elevator chimed and she stepped out, their eyes met. Something ancient moved between them, recognition beyond reason. She looked breathtaking, but it wasn't the dress. It was the quiet fire behind her eyes. "Hi," she said. "Hi," he breathed. They didn't talk much at first, just moved closer, then closer still. The way her hand fit into his, the way his breath hitched when she leaned her forehead against his chest. They kissed, not like strangers finding attraction, but like two souls remembering something they hadn't yet lived. They made love with a kind of sacred slowness. Amira's hands learned him like a song. Silas held her as though he'd never known what it meant to be tender. And when it was over, and her head rested against his shoulder, silence fell between them. Not awkward, not fearful. Just full, she whispered. "Do you think you'll remember this?" He turned, brushing her curls behind her ear. "I'll forget my name before I forget this." Sunlight filtered into the penthouse through floor-to-ceiling windows, touching the silk sheets with a softness that contrasted the wild ache in Amira's chest. She lay still, her body half-curled, the sheet draped over her like a fragile truth. Silas was already awake, not beside her, but across the room, barefoot in dark slacks and a plain t-shirt, leaning against a window, coffee mug in hand. He looked like a dream unfinished. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, voice husky from the night. He turned to her slowly. "Didn't want to miss this." Amira blinked. "Miss what?" "You. Here. Like this." Her breath caught. His words never came packaged in flowers or charm. They landed raw, unexpected, and too honest for comfort. That was what scared her, that he might mean it. The morning passed in half-sentences and lingering glances. He made her tea. She borrowed one of his button-downs. They talked about nothing and everything. Her favorite Maya Angelou poem, his childhood stutter, the kind of ice cream that should be illegal. They didn't talk about the night before. They didn't need to. But by noon, reality began to tap gently at the glass. Amira had to leave. She had a shift at the bookstore. Rent was due next week. Her life didn't pause just because her heart had stumbled into something rare. "I should go," she said, standing barefoot in his hallway, her coat slung over one arm. Silas didn't stop her, but he didn't let her leave untouched either. As she reached for the doorknob, his hand found her waist. "Wait." She turned. His face was unreadable, the kind of guarded expression worn by men who have lost too much too soon. "I want to see you again," he said quietly. "Tonight. Tomorrow. As long as you'll let me." Her breath stilled. He wasn't asking for a repeat. He wasn't asking for her body. He was asking for her. She smiled, just a little. "Then you know where to find me." That week blurred into the next. 7 days turned into 13, and then a month. Amira had never known time could feel like breathing underwater. Slow, expansive, something you could get drunk on. She and Silas began to meet nearly every evening, sometimes at his place, sometimes hers, sometimes nowhere fancy, just walking through bookstores, eating from food trucks, sitting on park benches like they weren't a billionaire and a girl who still counted tips and quarters. He was careful with her, not cautious, careful. He remembered the things she forgot she'd said. He left flowers in her mailbox, but never with a note. He asked about her thesis, her mother, her fears. One night, under stars and city lights, she said softly, "Why me?" He looked at her, stunned. "What do you mean?" "You could have anyone, and I mean that. So why me?" Silas looked like she'd just asked why water was wet. "Because you speak like poetry," he said, "and look at the world like it still deserves forgiveness. But even perfect stories have shadows." And Lena, Amira's best friend, was the first to see it coming. "You're falling too fast," she warned. "Men like Silas don't build forever. They build exits." Amira didn't want to believe her. She didn't want to see the calls he ignored during dinner. The way his eyes sometimes clouded when she mentioned the future. The way his fingers drummed on the table whenever someone mentioned the word commitment. But she wasn't stupid. She saw. She just hoped she was the exception. One night, exactly 47 days after they first slept together, Silas showed up at her apartment late. Later than usual, past midnight. He looked tired. Not physically, emotionally, like the past was knocking at his door. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I need to tell you something," he said. He didn't sit. He didn't touch her. Just looked at her with something like dread. "There's a woman. Her name is Celeste." Amira felt the room tilt. "We were engaged once," he continued. "It ended badly. But I saw her today. Unexpectedly. She wants to meet. Not to rekindle. Closure, she says." Silence swelled like a bruise between them. Amira swallowed. "And you? What do you want?" Silas's voice cracked. "I want you." But it wasn't enough. She didn't cry. Not yet. She only nodded. "Then prove it." Silas didn't sleep that night. Not because he was with Celeste. He wasn't. But because Amira's voice haunted him. "Then prove it." The words circled his thoughts like restless ghosts. They weren't said out of anger. That would have been easier. They were said with that heartbreaking mixture of strength and surrender. The way someone speaks when they're offering you the last of their hope. And Silas knew he didn't deserve it. He hadn't seen Celeste in 3 years. The breakup was volcanic, emotional landslides. Lies buried under layers of class and expectation. She was the daughter of a senator. Her smile was trained, her ambition sharp. She had loved his name more than his heart. When the engagement ended, there was no going back. But now she was back in town. She'd called a closure. He'd agreed to meet her, not out of longing, but out of duty, out of the lingering what-ifs that whispered through the hallways of broken relationships. But now he regretted it, because sitting across from Celeste earlier that day, he'd felt nothing, no warmth, no ache, only the hollow relief of knowing he hadn't made the mistake of marrying her. "I'm happy for you," she had said too sweetly. "This new girl, I hope she's ready for the kind of storms you carry." He left the cafe without replying. He didn't owe her a damn thing anymore. The next morning, Silas showed up at Amira's bookstore. No call, no warning. She was helping a child find a graphic novel when she looked up and saw him, standing by the new arrival shelf in jeans and a black coat, holding a cup of coffee and a small brown box. Their eyes met. He took a step forward. "Can we talk?" She glanced at her coworker, nodded, and motioned for Silas to follow her to the alley behind the store. The door closed behind them, leaving only the sounds of the city and the hum of her breath. "Well?" she asked, arms crossed. Silas handed her the coffee. Her favorite, oat milk chai with a hint of vanilla. She didn't smile, but she took it. Then he handed her the box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a small hand-bound book. The title was etched in gold ink. "What I Never Told You. A record of every thought I've had since the night I met you." Amira opened to the first page. "You smiled at me like I wasn't wearing my last name like a crown. You fell asleep with your fingers tangled in mine, and I haven't been able to write a single email without thinking of that. You make me believe in do-overs and forgiveness, in slow-burning magic." She closed the book before her tears betrayed her. Silas stepped closer. "I told Celeste I wasn't the man she knew anymore. Because of you." He swallowed hard. "I want to build something with you, Amira. Not just moments. A life. I don't care how long it takes. I just need to know if you'll let me try." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she handed him the book back. "I'll read every page," she whispered. "But I need more than beautiful words." "No," he said. "I'm not asking you to fall again. I'm asking you to watch me become the man you deserve." The weeks that followed were different. Not perfect, but intentional. Silas canceled his quarterly trip to Zurich. He started showing up to her poetry readings, to brunch with Lena, to quiet afternoons folding laundry beside her while she talked about the meaning behind Rupi Kaur's newest poem. He didn't try to impress her anymore. He just let her see him. And in return, she began to let him see her too. Not just a brave girl with warm skin and witty retorts, but the woman with fears, doubts, a grief that still gripped her some nights when the apartment was too quiet. She told him about her father, the way he walked out when she was 10, about the foster home that stole her journals, about the art school she never applied to because the application fee was too high. Silas listened, not to fix, but to understand. Then came the night of Lena's engagement party. Amira wore a navy blue dress that made Silas forget every vowel in his vocabulary. Her hair was pinned up, neck bare, eyes laughing. But the joy was interrupted halfway through the night when Celeste appeared at the door. Uninvited, she approached with a glass of wine in one hand and arrogance in the other. "I see you took my advice," she said to Silas, eyeing Amira with thinly veiled contempt. Amira turned slightly, locking eyes with her. "Hi, I'm Amira." The reason Silas smiles now. Celeste blinked. Silas couldn't help the grin that spread across his face. "She's also the reason I learned the difference between wanting and deserving." Celeste made a sound in her throat, nodded curtly, and walked off. Amira turned to Silas, cheeks pink. "Too much?" "Not at all," he murmured, brushing his lips against her temple. "But you just made every man in this room jealous." Later that night, after the party, they stood in her tiny apartment kitchen, barefoot, tipsy, a little breathless. "I love you," Silas said, unplanned and unprompted. Amira froze. Her eyes softened, then welled. She didn't say it back, not because she didn't feel it, but because love was something she hadn't trusted in a long time. Instead, she took his hand and pressed it over her heart. "Then don't break this," she whispered. "I won't." Spring came early that year. The rain was softer. The sun lingered longer. and the air between Amira and Silas carried something quiet and certain. Not the blazing fireworks of infatuation, but the warm steadiness of a flame that had chosen to stay. But with the blossoming peace came the ghosts of the past. And for Amira, they came in the form of an envelope. She found it in her mailbox, no return address. Just her name in careful handwriting. Inside was a check, $10,000, and a letter. Amira, I heard you're seeing someone again. I'm glad, but I've been carrying this guilt for too long. It's not enough, I know. But maybe it'll help you with that bookstore or whatever it is you dream about. You didn't deserve the way I left. I was scared. I was stupid. Forgive me if you can. Elijah. Elijah, the man she thought would marry her. The one who had taken everything she offered, love, loyalty, trust, and disappeared one cold December without a word. She stared at the check, numb. That evening, Silas found her sitting on the floor of her living room, the envelope open beside her, her face unreadable. Is that, he began. Elijah, she said quietly. Apparently, he grew a conscience. Silas sat beside her, tense but calm. What are you going to do? I don't know, she whispered. I don't need his money, but I don't know if I'm ready to forgive him either. You don't have to decide tonight. She looked at him. And you? Are you jealous? He reached for her hand. I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting. But I'm not afraid of ghosts. I'm only afraid of losing what we're building. She leaned into him, the tension breaking like a wave. I don't want to lose it either. Over the next few days, Amira returned the check. No letter, no explanation, just a simple act of saying, you don't get to rewrite my story with money. She tucked the envelope into the mailbox, took a breath, and walked away. And in that quiet act of closure, she freed herself. 1 week later, Silas asked her to come with him to his family's vineyard. Not as my girlfriend, he said. As someone I want the world to know is part of my future. She hesitated, not because she didn't love him, but because his world still felt so far from hers. Old money, private chefs, vineyards in Napa. She wasn't ready for pearls and politics. But Silas saw that fear in her eyes and kissed it away. You won't have to pretend to be anything but yourself. The vineyard was nestled in a quiet valley, surrounded by lavender fields and honeybees. His mother, elegant in an understated way, greeted her with a long look and a slow, approving nod. You're not what I expected, she said. Neither is he, Amira replied. And for the first time, Silas's mother laughed, a rich, surprised sound. By the second day, they were sitting on the porch together, sipping tea, talking about literature and grief and the stubborn resilience of women who had to build themselves from scratch. Amira held her own, not with bravado, but with truth. The night before they were to leave, Silas led Amira into the vineyard under a sky thick with stars. Fairy lights lined the path. The air smelled of crushed grapes and summer grass. At the end of the trail was a small round table, 2 chairs, a bottle of wine, and a book. Her book, the poetry collection she'd always dreamed of printing. He handed it to her. I found your old journals. I had them restored, and I hired a small press. This is the first printed copy. Tears welled in her eyes. You did this for me? For us, he said. Because your dreams are part of mine now. He dropped to one knee. The world stood still. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a ring. Not flashy, not oversized. Simple, elegant. A blue sapphire in a rose gold setting. The same blue as the first dress she wore when he fell for her. Amira, he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. You gave me your first time, your truth, your trust, and every day since, you've shown me what it means to love without pride. He took her hand, eyes locked on hers. I don't want a perfect love. I want ours. Messy, real healing growing. Will you marry me? For a moment, the only sound was her breath, uneven, overwhelmed. Then, through a choked whisper, yes, God, yes. He stood, slipped the ring on her finger, and kissed her like the world had finally stopped spinning just to watch them stay still. The bookstore sat on a quiet corner of East 12th and Morrow. All warm wood and glass windows filled with handwritten notes and carefully curated displays. It was called Blue Hour, a name inspired by the color of the sky just before nightfall and by a certain blue sapphire that still glowed on Amira's hand. Inside, laughter mingled with the soft hum of a jazz record. Children sprawled on a rug in the reading corner. Couples sipped lattes at the cafe tables. In the back, under the soft glow of Edison bulbs, Amira arranged a fresh stack of poetry collections next to a display labeled, "Local authors we love." A familiar voice came from behind her. "You stocked my book again?" She turned, smiling. "Barely kept it on the shelves." Silas wrapped his arms around her waist, pressing a kiss to her temple. His once sharp business suits had softened to rolled sleeves and leather bracelets. The billionaire had become a part-time author and a full-time father. Their daughter, Maya, toddled in soon after, holding a crumpled flyer and announcing proudly, "Story time." Amira laughed, kneeling to scoop her up. "That's right, baby. Mommy's reading today." As the sun dipped low outside, casting golden light through the windows, Amira took her place in the center of the room, Maya in her lap, Silas leaning against the back wall, arms crossed, eyes soft with a kind of love that had never faded. She opened the book, voice gentle. "Once upon a time, a woman took a chance on her heart, and the world changed because of it."